So what happens is they end up doing what I call seagull management. They swoop in, they shit all over everybody, and they fly away. And then they expect somebody else to clean up their mess. They need to learn that they're hurting themselves, that they're hurting their own company. So the COO's job is.
You're listening to Titans of the Trades. I'm your host, Ryan Englin, author of Hire Better People Faster and creator of the CoreFit hiring system, a proven process to help growing companies attract and retain only the best. I'm on a mission to revolutionize the perception of the trades and elevate it to new heights. After growing up in a blue-collar family, my passion for making the trades cool again runs deep. If you're a titan in the industry and want to be on my show, stick around until the end and I'll reveal how you can be my next guest. Welcome back. I am your host, Ryan Englin. This is Titans of the Trades. And today's Titan does not need a lot of introduction. If you've never heard of Cameron Herold before and you are growing your organization, you have a second in command, a COO, a VP of ops, someone that is managing the day-to-day for you, this episode is for you. Or if you're in the position where you're looking to hire someone into that role, promote someone into that role, you feel you are ready for having someone help run the organization with you, this show is for you. Cameron Herold is written 6 different books. His most recent book is Second in Command. I just finished reading it. Incredible. Changed my perspective on a whole bunch of things. You're really going to enjoy today's show. I want to welcome to today's show, Cameron Herold, author of Second in Command. Cameron, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ryan, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I am so excited for this because I know that anybody listening is going to get just a wealth of information, tactical, real world stuff on how they can do this. But before we jump in, give us a quick 30-second clip. Who is Cameron Herold?
Cameron Herold, the father, global nomad, husband, entrepreneur, lifelong entrepreneur, and just, I guess, one of the 8 billion people on the planet that are all walking each other home.
Oh, humble guy. Let's add that to it. I just watched your TED Talk the other night with my wife, and she's like, "What are you watching?" And I was like, this is a guy that gets why kids don't do well in school. This is amazing.
I was one of those kids, man. I really struggled with the school system. I feel like I was emotionally abused by the school system in a way where, I was trying my best and working hard, but I was also very distracted. I've got 17 of the 18 signs of attention deficit disorder. I was very entrepreneurial, and I was always told that, back in those days, being an entrepreneur was not cool. We were vilified, and we were the greedy little capitalists. We weren't allowed to do anything that was entrepreneurial in school. Yeah, I feel like school was really hard on me.
I feel the same way. I mean, school is one of those things that I was like, I just don't understand why they're pushing us in a certain way. Although I did the thing that a good kid's supposed to. I went to college. Now, the whole time I'm thinking, what am I doing here?
Yeah, I was in college, but I was also running my own business. I'd already kind of gotten deep into the whole entrepreneurial venture by the time that I was in university. In fact, I was in second year university. I had 12 full-time employees.
Wow. That's amazing. I graduated, and I remember my first job interview, it was an entry-level job, and they rejected me in the interview. And I said, "What's going on?" They're like, "You've had your own business. Like, we don't want that. You're not going to fit here." In other words, we don't want someone that has that freedom of thought that is going to challenge us.
Oh, I was right there with you. Yeah, I was definitely an odd one. I'm not really employable. I haven't really been employable my whole life. I've had a job. It was because I was really helping a friend scale up their company, and I was really operating more as that second in command, but I don't lend myself very well to the job market. How could I, right? When you've got 12 employees when you're 20 years old, it's not like you're going to work well in a company environment.
Yeah. And then you've gone on to do amazing things, like you said, as a second in command. And then now you've got the COO Alliance. I want to jump into second in command because this isn't a phrase that was really commonplace for me. And then you've got a book called Second in Command. I just finished reading it a couple weeks ago. Changed my perspective on what a second in command is, what they should be responsible for, what my expectations from be. And I'll tell you, before I read the book, I was thinking, I need a COO. I need one for my business. I don't anymore.
Oh.
Based on what was in your book, I'm not even close to needing a COO. And I think that's a common misconception. So break that down for me. What is it that most people are thinking they need, but what do they really need in that situation?
They need help. What most entrepreneurs are saying when they say, I need a COO or I need a second in command, what they're really saying is, I need help. I need
Mm,
someone to help me get done all the stuff that I know has to get done. I need someone to help me do all the stuff that I suck at. I need me to help someone to help me do all the stuff that I don't like doing. I need me to have somebody who can help grow my team and grow my people. I
mm,
need somebody who can take some stuff off my plate so I can have a life. But that doesn't have to be a COO. It could just be a starting point is getting an executive assistant, right? I've always
mhm.
said, if you don't have an executive assistant, you are one. So if most entrepreneurs and many entrepreneurs are doing admin work, they're doing, $15 an hour jobs. So as an example, let's say that you're an entrepreneur and you're making $250,000 a year in profit. That equates to about $125 an hour times 40 hours a week times 52 weeks a year is 250,000 in profit. So if you're getting paid about $125 an hour, why are you doing minimum wage work?
Mm,
Right? If I was the owner of your company and I found out I was paying you $125 an hour and you were doing $15 or $20 an hour tasks, I'd probably fire you as completely incompetent. Why am I paying you 6 times what you're worth? Now, if you're making $500,000 US, $250 an hour. So
yeah.
most entrepreneurs as a starting point need an executive assistant. Once you've got a bunch of the admin off your plate, then you need somebody who can take some of the operational stuff, some of the projects you suck at, who can really free up your time to work on your areas of unique ability. And maybe that's a director of operations or an operations manager. Maybe it's a general manager. Maybe it's even as high as a VP of operations. But the only time you really need a true C-level person who's coming in, someone coming in with P&L responsibility, someone who's coming in to show you how to scale the company, someone who's coming in with budgetary approval for spend, somebody who is literally making strategic decisions. That's really when you're already kind of in the 10 to $30 million zone. That's when you're in that range that you might need your first true leadership team of C-level people.
Yeah, we do a lot of work in the trades, and I know owners of companies that are doing 60, $80 million a year, and they are still the ones doing the estimate late at night, getting the bid out. They're the ones that are still going out to the job site to deal with problems with the GC. They are still the ones that are doing, it's not even at the $15 an hour work. They're doing $40 an hour work, but they're bringing home half a million, $1 million a year, but they still get caught up in this $40 an hour work. And then they get scared to
Yeah,
hire somebody and pay them market wages because they're like, why would I want to pay somebody $10 more than what I think they should make?
exactly right. Yeah. Well, and it's because they're stuck again. It's the classic working in the business instead of working on the business, right?
Yeah. Break that down for me. Share with them what you really mean by that. Because I think a lot of people get confused versus in and on. They are able to justify the in work as on work, but it's not really that.
Yeah, working in the business is doing day-to-day tasks and projects that is stuff that needs to get done. So I was coaching a CEO recently. This is a client that I've been coaching for the last year or so. And he said that his to-do list was overwhelming. And I said, delegate it. And he goes, I don't have anybody I can delegate it to. And I said, yeah, you do. You got a whole bunch of employees, project by project, pick someone to delegate that project to. And then you, instead of spending your time doing the work, spend your time coaching them and giving them the skills and the confidence and the connections so they can do what you do,
Mm,
right? Let's say you're a contractor and you're building homes, but you had no arms and no legs. You're sitting in a wheelchair. You can't walk around the job site. You got no legs. You can't throw a hammer. You got no arms. So you got to just delegate. You're going to sit there and just tell people what to do. And then you're going to cheer them on and coach them and they're going to do the work. That's really what makes a successful company and successful entrepreneur is our job is to get results through people. In
eh,
my first company, when I was 20 years old, I had 12 full-time employees. We were painting 5 to 6 simultaneous job sites at a time. So when you're painting 5 people's homes, I can't be the one doing the painting.
yeah.
In fact, I've done millions of dollars of house painting and I'm pretty average as a painter. I've probably spent I've probably done a total of 20 or 30 hours of painting myself, but I've spent thousands of hours hiring people, coaching people, delegating to people, running projects, dealing with customers, dealing with marketing, figuring out markets to sell into, but not actually doing the work.
Yeah. That's a great distinction. I think a lot of times we get caught up in this idea, well, I don't have anyone to do the work. Like you said, you've got a whole team of people, or maybe there's a role that you need to fill that you haven't filled yet to do
Yeah.
that.
Well, I'll give you a classic example right now. So I've hosted a podcast for the last 9 years called the Second in Command podcast. I've
Mm.
done about 540 episodes. I used to be the one to interview all of the guests. About a year ago, I hired a co-host so that she could interview a bunch of the guests for me. I pay her a good amount of money. I pay her $350 an episode to interview them for me so that I can step away and work on the business and work on higher revenue generating opportunities. I've now just hired a second co-host. And between the two of them, they're both former COOs. They're both former COO Alliance members. They're going to interview 100% of my podcast guests. And for the next 12 months, we will still put out 2 episodes a week and I will interview no one.
Oh,
And because it's not about me, it's about the guest.
yeah.
So as long as I can get a good interview, what does it matter no one's showing up to listen to me.
Hmm.
So now I'm delegating everything except genius. I'm better at being on podcasts than interviewing my own guests. I'm better at doing speaking events. Like I just did a speaking event last week to 350 CEOs of construction related companies, home services related businesses. I got paid $40,000 for the speaking event. I've landed a couple of COO Alliance members from it. I'll land a couple of coaching clients from it. And I've done about $15,000 in course sales. So I'll probably generate $250,000 in revenue from a 90-minute talk and a couple days of travel. It's way better for me to do that and more energizing than for me to sit and do interviews. So
Wow.
so that's working on the business instead of in the business.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So you broke down the EA versus the VP of Ops versus the COO. And that was a big eye-opening, awakening moment for me. The light bulb went off. The CEO is not an individual contributor, and they should not be doing individual contributor work at all. They are strictly a leader. And I remember something from your book where you said, and they might not be the best at running a sales team, or they might not be the best at running ops, but they know how to lead the people who are.
Correct.
Did I get that right?
Exactly right. Yeah. So at the end of the day, your job is to get results through others. Your job as the CEO is to decide the vision of the company, the culture of the company, and to ensure people are aligned with the direction you're going in. And then at the end of the day, your job is to find the 2 or 3 things that you're really, really good at that you love to do and delegate everything except genius.
Yeah. I love that. Delegate everything except genius. I love that. All right. So let's talk for a second because there was some really, by the way, chapter 6, I mean, music to my ears. Like you had my heart, which is how to hire the COO, how to take them through the interview, all that. I remember calling my team after that. I'm like, this guy gets me. This is amazing. So let's say for a second that someone listening right now is like, no, I need the COO. I've got a director. I've got VPs in place. I've got those. I need someone to block and tackle, play the buffer, and get those people so I can go work on the things that only I can do.
Yeah.
I've heard that you're skeptical of MBAs, resumes stacked with logos, people that claim all the experience. I mean, if credentials don't make a great CEO, what does?
Well, for me, what makes a really good COO is someone who fits with me as the CEO, right? Somebody
Mhm.
who fits my company culture, someone who's really good at the stuff that I suck at, someone who loves to do the stuff that drains me of energy. That's a really good starting point for me. And then I also want to find somebody who, for the money that I'm willing to pay, has done the work before. So I have some good predictability of success coming out from that person. That's really the good starting point. So
Nice.
really in finding a good second in command or really finding any good hire, it's understanding your company, understanding your culture, and really understanding the roles and responsibilities that you're hiring for, and then going and getting that person.
That's why listening to your book was, I mean, I agree with you 100%. That's the work we do over at Core Matters is help them define those things and get clear on those things so that we can start making the right hires and everything else. You also said something about the COO. There needs to be a really strong partnership there. Now, they don't have to be necessarily an equity partner or those kinds of things, but it needs to feel like a partnership. Can you dig into that a little bit?
Yeah, it's almost like your business marriage, right? This is the person that you're going to have the most trust in, that you're going to be spending the most time with. This is the person that has to read your mind and complete your sentences. And this is the person that you're relying on that's going to make your vision come true. So if that's the person that you're going to be relying on everything for, you have to ensure that you know them, you like them, and you trust them, and that they've done this stuff before, because you're really going to be giving them your business to operate in many ways for a long period of time. So you got to do the groundwork to make sure you're bringing that right person into the organization. And then when you have them, that you spend the time continuing to build that relationship and build the communication, much like a traditional marriage, right?
Uh,
There's not a single marriage out there that people get married and then 40 years later they go, well, that was easy, right? It
yeah, no
takes
truer
work.
words have been spoken, Cameron.
Right. It takes work. They got to spend time on date night. You got to spend time getting away from the kids. You got to spend time on communication and trust and having fun. You got to spend time building some mystery. It drives me bonkers when CEOs blame the COO. When you're pointing a finger at somebody, there's three fingers pointing back at you,
Mm.
right? Anybody who's just listening and can't watch that, kind of make a little gun shape and pretend you're pointing a finger at somebody saying, well, that person's the problem. There's three fingers pointing back at you, and maybe there's your contribution to the problem as well. Kind
Uh,
of like a traditional marriage. You can sit there and go, my wife is crazy. But until you recognize that you're pretty crazy too, oh, then everything starts to get a little bit easier.
yeah.
Not easy, but easier.
That is a segue into something I was just thinking about is for the people that have said, I can't find a great COO or I had a COO and it didn't work out. I mean, how often is the real problem the COO versus the founder, the CEO who just can't let go of control, can't get out of their own way?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a data point on how often it is the COO or the CEO, but I would say more often than not, it's a combination of both,
Uh,
right? One of the things that drives me crazy is entrepreneurs who will be like, oh, I'm so glad that person quit. Well, you hired them. You were excited when you hired them. What happened from the point of like, what did you screw up in the hiring and interview process? What did you mess up in the top grading or reference check process? What did you not do well on the onboarding and training process? What happened over the last few years that now has you at the point that you're glad it's over? Right?
yeah.
How did you, as a traditional marriage, how did you grow apart? How did you marry that crazy person? Like, why did you get married after 2 weeks instead of a couple of years of living together? Like, what did you not know going into that relationship? Or what were your contributions to that relationship? But yes, that can be the wrong person. But again, you interviewed them, you hired them, you trained them, you onboarded them. So I think there's always both sides are complicit or can be complicit.
Yeah. I think that a lot of it has to do with the lack of properly set expectations or just we make assumptions about the other person or about what we expect. And then we let it go because they're busy or we've got a lot on our plate, or at least I'm feeling some relief. And then we wake up a year later and go, this ain't working.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's insane how frequently that happens. And I love what you said. It's like a marriage. And I agree with you. You know, most marriages that get married after 2 weeks, they don't work. There's a reason for that. We didn't get to know each other. We didn't set the proper expectations. The same thing, you're hiring a COO. This is not a take them to lunch and they showed up for the interview. Let's hire them because their resume looks great.
Correct. I mean, Brian and I had a very unfair advantage at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, right? Our unfair advantage was we had been a part of a mastermind community in the Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, for
Mhm.
4 years together. We were in a
Yeah.
forum together in EO for 4 years. Every month we met for 4 to 6 hours and talked about each other's businesses in a group of 8 entrepreneurs. So he already saw me building 2 other companies. He already knew where I was successful. He knew what would drive him crazy. And then 3 months before I started to work with him, he was the best man at my wedding.
Mm.
So he was already my best friend. We already knew each other, liked each other, and trusted each other. That then building a business was something we layered on top of that. So it is a bit of an unfair advantage, but there's systems there that you can use to ensure that you're recruiting and hiring a person that you can know, like, and trust on day one as well.
Now, I know a lot of people think the COO is the one that runs the company. Someone else gets the credit, typically the CEO. And I know that you break that down in your book and how it worked for you at 1-800-GOT-JUNK and how it doesn't always have to work that way. But can you talk to me a little bit about the psychological dynamics of that? One person doing the work, the other person getting the credit.
Well, the COO's job is to make the CEO iconic, right? My job is to make Steve Jobs look good or Ray Kroc look good or Walt Disney look good, right? My job is to make this Howard Schultz. My job is to make the CEO look good. And then so that means I'm rolling out the bad decisions. I'm rolling out the tough decisions. I'm the one holding people accountable. I'm the one making the tough calls and letting the CEO roll out the good stuff. Because if we have them as a beacon of light for everybody to follow, if they're like the Pied Piper for everyone to believe in, that helps the organization as a whole. Their job, the CEO's job internally, is to shine a spotlight on me, right?
Uh,
Hey, Cameron has to be the tough guy. Cameron has to roll out the tough decisions. We need Cameron to do that for us. It's kind of like when my mom, sent me to my room for being bad. And she said, wait till your dad gets home, and then my dad would come home. I'm 60. My dad would come home, an hour or two later, and I'd get the inevitable spanking and I would cry. And then my mom would come and talk to me an hour later and say, your daddy loves you, but I need your dad to be the tough guy. I need your dad to punish you.
yeah.
So my mom was the soft, good cop. My dad had to play bad cop. And then my dad would love bomb the shit out of me for the rest of the week. He'd be at every activity and every practice and every game. But I knew that they were a team that were together. Now
Uh,
they would argue and fight separately, but they always had each other's back. So my dad had to be there because my mom was with me all day long, right?
yeah.
So they understood those roles and those dynamics.
I think that's a perfect analogy. I'm sitting here thinking through some of the CEO, COO teams I know, and so often the COO comes in later or they're promoted up later. The CEO's been there forever, and the rest of the team is so used to just going directly to the CEO, they start going around them, and the
Yeah.
CEO tolerates that. Like,
Well, that
talk
was
to us a
something that
little
we
bit
had.
about that.
Yeah, we had to work on that back in the early days in the Got Junk era was, I came into a company that Brian had already started. He'd been running the business for 11 years, got it to 2 million in revenue. He had just sold his 12th franchise. So the first 12 franchisees knew him and liked him and believed in him. And then here's this guy from the outside coming in that they don't know. And
Uh,
I needed all the franchise operations to start to report to me so that Brian could focus on his unique ability and so that I could actually scale something that I knew how to do. I'd already built two other franchise companies at that point, and Brian hadn't. But I had to get the franchisees not to go to Brian directly. And it was hard in the first year or so because they knew him, they had a relationship with him, they didn't quite know me yet. So sometimes there were some struggles, and Brian would have to tell them, hey, Cameron is doing the right thing. Just trust Cameron on this. He knows better than I do. And then Brian might come and talk to me and go, dude, you're pissing so and so off. I'd be, yeah, but I'm pissing him off because you never did. You were the one always avoiding conflict. Like somebody needs to make the tough decisions, right? So
yeah.
it was always that mom and dad talking with each other behind the scenes and then showing up with the kids as that force that were together. And then,
My
by the way,
CEO.
the employees knew and the franchisees knew that if they were always bumping into a wall with me and could never get anywhere, and it was truly like a situation that needed to go to Brian, they knew that door was open.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those CEOs that are listening going, yeah, I've got that CEO that always lets everybody end around me and they still deal with it. And the CEO's the one, because I heard you say he was really good at saying, no, that's Cameron's thing. That's what Cameron does. How do you get the CEO to start playing ball and cooperating in that situation?
Well, one of the big problems I see with entrepreneurial CEOs is most entrepreneurial CEOs, me included, are very ADD, right? So we have attention deficit disorder, meaning we see everything, we're distracted by everything, we have ideas constantly, we notice every single little problem, and we need it fixed right away because our brain is so full that we just delegate everything really quickly. We also struggle with bipolar. Most entrepreneurs are very high on the spectrum for bipolar disorder. So we get very stressed and depressed and frustrated when we're not manic and going crazy and taking the world by storm. So we end up kind of kicking the door and getting pissed off and getting frustrated with all these things because we're overwhelmed. Those are
Uh,
just natural traits of entrepreneurs. So what happens because of that is they end up doing what I call seagull management. They swoop in, they shit all over everybody, and they fly away. And then they expect somebody else to clean up their mess. They need to learn that they're hurting themselves, that they're hurting their own company. They need to learn that they're like the emperor who's the new suit is they're actually naked, right?
uh,
So the COO's job is to show the CEO where they're hurting themselves and to show the CEO where they're causing more problems than good. And our job is to help save them from themselves at times.
I think it's great. As you were telling that story about seagull management, I was thinking about a general superintendent a couple years ago described his owner that way. He also named him Miley Cyrus because he comes in like a wrecking ball. And
Right.
that was just how he described him. And it was so frustrating to the team. And we saw over time that the owner just started to back off. And oh my gosh, things started operating well. Things started working well. Like the machine started working. It was awesome.
Totally.
One of the things that I do see is a lot of times resentment builds up between the CEO and the COO. And often I see CEOs are allowed to quietly fail. They won't fire them. They're just slowly sidelined. They're ignored. Talking
Yeah.
about what's happening there.
It's very normal that entrepreneurs have a deep need to be liked. They're still trying because they were often ostracized in the school system. They were often starving for praise. So they kind of avoid conflict so that people like them. They're starving for, hey, look at me, I'm successful. So what happens is they avoid conflict, right? They
Mm,
avoid the tough conversations. They get frustrated silently or they lash out in almost a passive aggressive way, but they often tend to avoid those tough conversations, which is where that yin and yang can be really powerful, right? Where they can rely on somebody who can roll out the tough conversations and then they can make sure that person is liked internally and understood internally.
what I often see is that you've got a CEO and a COO who have this little bit of dysfunction, and the CEO just doesn't want to have the tough conversations with them. But the other leaders on the team, they kind of ignore it as well. And they're like, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to get
Well, that's a
involved.
cultural thing, right? It's what Pat Lencioni in the book Five Dysfunctions of a Team talks about the fear of conflict and the avoidance of conflict and the inattention to results. It's when the team just kind of becomes very average, right?
Mm,
They're going through the day to day. Look, like one of my big pet peeves is when people say we're building a family. Most families are dysfunctional, and a lot of people didn't like their family. So but if
uh,
you were in a likable family, what you tend to do is you avoid the conflict to keep everybody happy. Well, that doesn't work in business. Now, if you're a sports team, you tend to not avoid the conflict, but you still are not operating at what I like, which is the Cirque du Soleil.
mm,
I want people that are operating like a really, really strong team and they have that trust. So if something's going wrong, I'm going to freaking tell you because my life is at stake when I'm flying through the air and you got to catch me by the wrists. So we
mm,
have to have that trust and those tough conversations and really stay on the same page. And that's a leader's job. That's a true COO's job is to bring that out and facilitate that inside of an organization.
mm. You said the family thing. I agree. Most families are dysfunctional. Let's not call it a family. You've described the COO as the organizational shock absorber. At what point does absorbing the chaos turn into enabling bad relationships? And how do we help the COO actually make some change throughout the organization?
Well, I've also said the COO has to be the brakes to the entrepreneur's gas, but not the parking brake. And we also need to be the leash to the entrepreneur's dragon, but not choke them. So if you're the shock absorber, our job is to make sure that we take the problems and kind of absorb it so that it doesn't cause all the ripple effects in the organization, but
Uh,
it doesn't mean to ignore them, right? It just means to control the ripple effects of the CEO's crazy behavior, of the big contract we land, of the client that quits, of the employee that quits, of the huge wave of new business we bring in. Our job is to absorb all of those to then be able to grow in a methodical, kind of focused, organized way without all the ripple effects.
oh, I love your visuals that you described, the visual effects and the leash and some of those things. It's just helping solidify so much of what I learned in the book. So I know that second in command had a profound effect on me. It really did. I've recommended it to so many people that are telling me they need a COO. They do. I'm like, you don't get to do anything until you read this book. If it scares a founder off from hiring a COO, is that a failure of the book or a success?
No, because again, you need to hire the senior people when your company needs them, right? So
Mm,
if you are overwhelmed, you don't have time to grow people, you're not focusing on the critical few things, you're working on busy work, you're working on stuff that drains you of energy, then yeah, it's a failure for yourself that you're not hiring a second in command. But companies have to scale into hiring the right people, just the same as hiring the head of finance. It could be a controller, a director of finance, a vice president of finance, or a CFO. Be careful with thinking that the COO or CFO or CMO is the thing you're hiring for. Titles are meant to be tied to the roles and responsibilities, the metrics, the amount of P&L responsibility they have, the level of strategic insight they bring into the organization. So you always need to have people that are in charge of certain areas, but they can also be fractional. Sometimes companies can have fractional leaders before they need the full-time leader. So I don't want people to get trapped and focusing on the wrong thing too early.
That's fantastic advice. Speaking of, as soon as you said CFO, that triggered something for me that made me think, you know what? I will need help someday to hire a CFO because in the work that I do and my expertise and the things that I enjoy, I don't know that I'd be able to really tell if I was hiring a good CFO if they were the right person. I would need help with that.
Of
Ho
course. So what I do is I look for outside advisors to help with that. So when we learned that lesson years ago, we were hiring the head of finance for 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and it was a
Oh,
true CFO. We had 3,000 employees. We had 13 operating P&Ls. We were operating in 4 countries. We had 13 corporate locations, 248 people at the head office. We needed a real CFO. And we didn't even know what a CFO, we didn't know their job. I suck at finance and not accounting, and Brian wasn't very good at it. Like, he was okay, but so we got our auditor to do interviews, we got our accounting firm to do interviews, and we got a CFO at a really great local organization to help us do interviews for the skill side of
yeah.
that person. And then Brian and I interviewed for cultural fit and used our gut check to see if we thought they could do the role, but we really interviewed to see how they would fit with us and the culture. So much so that I actually drove past our final 2 candidates' homes just to look at where they lived and what their yards were like to get a feel for them as people. And I remember the one guy was just a very beige home, a kind of a beige property. There was nothing there that was remarkable or drawing. And I drove past the woman who ended up hiring. She actually had her blinds open, and I could see her kind of a living room and the pictures and the culture and flowers out front. And it felt like Brian and I. In fact, her home looked like Brian's home. So there was something about her culturally that just made sense. And we were right. That was a great cultural fit for us. But we didn't have the chance to we didn't understand her skills. But the 3 people we brought in to do the skills interview did that check mark. Did the same for the head of IT, right? Where we hired the head of engineering. So those are important things to do.
Oh, I think that's great advice. We share something when you're hiring craft workers or laborers, walk them out to their vehicle and
Yeah.
see what that looks like. That'll tell
Yeah.
you right away, is this going to be a culture fit or not?
My sister did that years ago. She was looking for someone, and one of the things they had to be good at was strong in precision. They had to be very detail oriented. She had one of her employees look in the back of their vehicle, and she goes, "Dude, there's crap everywhere. There's McDonald's garbage bags. There's stuff all over the front seat. This is not a detail oriented person." Another
Yeah.
thing she did one time was she wanted someone who's very good at time management and project management. And the person had really described what perfect time management would be. So they knew it, they understood it, they had the knowledge of what time management was, but her gut was saying they didn't practice it. Her
Mm.
gut was saying they knew how to do it, but they didn't do it. So this was back prior to PDAs, prior to iPhones. And she said, "Do you carry a day timer?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's out in my car." She goes, "Can you go grab it?" And he goes, "Yeah, why?" She goes, "I want to look in your day timer. And if everything you described is how you manage your day and your week and your quarter, then I'll know that you not only know how to do it, but you do it." So he grabbed his jacket, February, and walked out in Toronto, out to the parking lot to his car. She's never seen him since.
Drove away.
The guy was gone, man, because he knew for sure that he didn't do what he said. Do you know how to win an Olympic gold medal? You
Do
do.
better than
You know
everyone
how to
else?
win. You also know how to break a world record, be faster or better than everyone else.
Yeah,
So you know how to do it, but you've never done it.
yeah.
So if I wanted a really strong swimmer, do I want someone who knows how to do all 4 strokes? Do I want someone who knows how to win a gold medal? Or do I want to hire a former Olympian? Do I want to hire a former national team member? Do I want to hire someone who's competed at individual and team events? So I look to hire someone who has done it before. That's why I have a strong bias against MBAs. A lot of them have a lot of knowledge, but they've never actually done the work before.
Oh, that's great. We share one too. If you've got someone who's going to be doing a lot of administrative work, communication through email, have them bring their phone in, unlock it, and show you how many unread emails they have or unread
Yeah.
text messages, right? Like
Yeah.
all similar stuff.
Someone's inbox should drive them crazy. Their inbox should be at 0 every day.
Yeah. So as we get ready to wrap up, if you could force every founder and COO to accept one uncomfortable truth before working together or to transform their working relationship, what would it be?
the big uncomfortable truth is that if you don't know the big problem that your company is facing week to week and working on that problem, then you're the problem,
Mm,
right? This is where Elon Musk is so genius, is every week he identifies the big problem facing his organization and he becomes monomaniacal around fixing that problem. But most entrepreneurs don't even know the one big problem facing their company today, which means you're the problem. Likewise with AI, right? If you're someone sitting down going, oh, AI is really not going to be able to change my business, you're the freaking problem. Because if you put somebody in there that knew AI and could look across your organization, they could probably get rid of a third of your employees and automate and optimize and I told someone recently that I was going to hire a cold caller. He goes, no, you don't need one. I'm like, no, I need a cold caller. He goes, no, you don't. I'm like, dude, okay, you're Yoda. Teach me, Yoda. He goes, you need an AI agent that can make outbound phone calls to your list. I'm like, does that exist? He goes, yeah, I have 2 of them. This guy literally has AI dialers that dial and make phone calls and book people onto his calendar. So all he does is talk to final candidates.
mm.
I'm like, wow, apparently I don't need an employee. So yeah, that's the big truth that I have that I think people need to think about is if you don't know the big problems or opportunities, you're the problem.
Wow. Well, last question I have for you. You gave the great example about the CFO, about your director of IT. For COO, where do people go get that support? I imagine you know somebody or you've got a team of people that can help them with hiring and supporting COOs. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I have a couple of executive search firms that only do COO searches. That's all they look for. A
Mm,
couple that I've referred clients to for about 11 years.
okay.
Clearly, we've started a community called the COO Alliance. So we have a large mastermind community with hundreds of COOs from small to mid-sized companies all over North America. And then I also have an Invest in Your Leaders training program, which is the 12 core leadership skills. It's called Invest in Your Leaders. And it has the 12 core skills that anybody in operations, in fact, anyone managing people needs to be good at to help make your company, scale up your organization.
That's fantastic. I did a little bit of looking into the COO Alliance. You guys have not only an amazing guarantee, but it looks like just amazing people that just get a ton of value out of it. So I'm so excited that resource exists. How do our listeners get a hold of you? How do they learn more if they're dealing with this COO, whether it's hiring someone new or dealing with an existing relationship? How do they get a hold of
Yeah.
you?
My best website is CameronHerold.com and it's HEROLD. So CameronHerold.com. That has links to my Second in Command podcast, my 6 books, the Invest in Your Leaders training, my COO Alliance. It's all there, my YouTube channels. So it's all on one clean website, CameronHerold.com.
Cameron, thank you so much for what you're doing, the impact you're making in businesses and communities all over the world. It's amazing and it's much needed. I've really enjoyed today's conversation. Thank you for being here today.
Of course, Ryan, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Ryan Englin here. Thank you so much for listening to Titans of the Trades. If you're a titan in the construction, manufacturing, or skilled trades industry and would like to be a guest on my show, please visit podcast.corematters.com. If you found value in this interview, would you share this episode on social media? Just do a quick screenshot on your phone and share it with a friend or post it on social. And if you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Titans of the Trades. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, click the subscribe button. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and get me one step closer to solving the labor crisis facing the industry. Want to know more about how we're doing that? Go to our website or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening.